Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to tell you how to increase your workflow in Blender for Unreal Engine 4 up to tenfold. The way we're going to do this is with a plugin for Blender called Capsule that will help us batch export entire scenes at once, and this can include not only LODs but also collision. Let's get started. Getting and installing Capsule is really simple. I'll post a link in the description of this video so that you can get to the GitHub. Once here, just simply download the zip file. Once you have the zip, open the Capsule master file. Inside of there you'll find the Capsule file. Now, because of the way that this file is set up, you'll actually need to drag out the Capsule folder, which is where the Python script is located, and recompress this into its own zip. Once you have that, you can go into Blender, go to User Preferences, click the Add-ons tab, install add-on from File. Then we'll go and find our Capsule zip that we just created and check the Import Export Capsule. Once we have that, save User Settings, and we'll find a new tab here called Capsule. You'll have to create Capsule data for the file every time, unfortunately. But once we've created that Capsule data, we'll go back into User Preferences, Add-ons, Capsule, which we already have selected, and in the Export Presets, we'll come down here to Saved Presets, UE4 Standard. As you can see, they also have a Unity 5 standard, which is nice. We'll select that and click Add to File Presets. Now we have that in our file presets. Then we can begin using Capsule. Before using Capsule, there's a couple of things we need to set up. The first thing you want to do is create your export locations. Now, to create an export location, we'll simply just click this plus box here. We can name that location. Once we have it, we can come down here to the folder, which is our file path, select that, choose our folder, and make sure that we click the relative path checkbox to off. Okay, if that's selected, the export won't work. Once we're done, accept, and now we can start exporting. For simple objects like these rocks that don't have a UCX collision object on them, we can simply just select the objects we want, as many as we need. Make sure that we choose our location for the export first. Then we're going to make sure we choose the UE4 standard that we just set up. You'll have to do that every time that you create a new file and generate the data for the Blender file. Then we'll also use Edge for our mesh normals. You can either use Edge or Face for UE4. And we have objects selected, that's important. And we can just come up here and click Enable Export. Just like that, all of our objects that we have selected in our scene are all going to be based on their origin point for the export. Now you could use scene origin if you wanted, but we don't want to. That's the whole point in this. So we don't use scene origin, and we will come down here and click Export. It goes ahead and generates those for us, and here we go. Now we have those all individually exported, and each one of them has their origin point as its center location in UE4 when we bring it in. Exporting objects that you also want to have collision boxes for is a little bit more complex, but it's nothing crazy. We simply need to create groups for our objects that we want to have grouped together. The way we set this up is by coming over to our Object tab and coming down to Groups. We'll simply click Add Group, and as you can see I have tons of them here. And in this case we're working on our object, which is Tree 8. I'll simply just create a new group, name that Tree 8, select my UCX Tree 8, and that's important. You have to name all your collision objects with UCX underscore, then the name of the object. Now if you were to have multiple collision boxes, you'd simply just name it UCX underscore tree 8 in this example 01, 02, and so on. But for now, we only need one. So we'll set both of these objects to the tree8 group. As you can see here, our UCX tree8 is on group tree8, and our tree8 is also on group tree8. All we need to do is simply select one of the objects that's in that group. It'll get highlighted with a green outline, and then we can come up here in our Capsule tab and click on Groups. You can see up here that tree8 group is selected, and we want to set our origin object to the tree8. This is important. We don't want our origin to be based on the UCX box. So after you've clicked on your tree, so I click the tree, click eyedropper, tree8 gets associated as the object origin. Now we set up our location. In this case, it's our test location. Export presets to UE4, mesh to either edge or face, and we will select groups and then click on enable export. As you can see here, we have our tree8 group. Simply click export, and when we look in our test location, we have tree8. And this tree8 has our UCX box with it, as well as our tree. Now the fun doesn't just stop there. Not only can we export an exponential amount of objects at one time, but we can also export an exponential amount of groups at one time that can contain not only our custom collision boxes, but also LOD groups. Now, natively, Blender does not currently support exporting LOD groups, but with a small change in some code, we can make it work just fine. So the first thing we want to do is travel to wherever Blender is installed on our computer. So we'll find the Blender files, go into our current version, find scripts, and we want to go to add-ons, and scroll down until we see IO Scene FBX. And then we want to open up the export FBX bin.py. Once you're in there, you're going to want to travel down to line 561, and just below that at 562, we're going to add a pound symbol to comment out that line. And we'll hit enter to create some space so we can see it. And we're going to paste in the code that I will provide a link to in the description of this video. Once you've pasted in that code, you can just save your file. And if you have a current version of Blender open, you're going to want to make sure you save that file, exit out of Blender, and reopen it. Now there's something you're going to have to set up real quickly for the Capsule plugin that we're already using, so we're going to go to File, User Preferences, and in User Preferences, make sure we find Capsule, and we're going to open up the settings for it, and scroll down to the bottom where it says Export, open that up, and by default it should have Mesh and Armature selected here. You just want to click on Mesh and hold down Shift and click on Empty, because we're going to be using an empty to set up our LOD group. Then just save your user preferences and close on out of that. Making sure that you click your primary object, so in our case it's our tree, and you're just going to hit Shift S and we're going to move our cursor to selected. And so that puts our cursor right down at the origin point that we basically want to be the origin for our tree. Once that's there, we can just hit Shift A and we're going to add an empty plain axis. And we can just scale that up so we can see it. Now just for reference, we're going to want to name that LOD underscore group, and in this case, tree. And I'm just putting it in caps so I can see it. The name actually does not matter. Now we're going to want to select our first LOD, which would be our base mesh. So that is tree underscore LOD0. And so we'll take that and we're going to shift click on our LOD group and make sure our mouse is over our 3D area, and we'll just hit Control P and we're going to set parent to object. We're going to do the same thing with our second LOD. So in this case, tree underscore LOD1. And we will shift and left click on our LOD group again, making sure our mouse is over the 3D area. Control P, set parent to object. So if we expand that, we'll see that LOD group tree has tree underscore LOD0 and tree underscore LOD1 set as children to the LOD group. Now, as we learned when we were talking about exporting objects that had their own custom collision box with them, we have to set up a group for that in the object data. And so, as you can see, our tree LOD0 is already set to a group called tree. And if we look at all the others, we also see that tree LOD1 is set to tree, and so on for our UCX underscore tree. And in this case, notice how we have not just UCX underscore tree underscore 0, 1, 2, and 3. We've also added in the LOD0, because LOD0 is our base mesh, okay? So We have changed our UCXs in this scenario to, as you can tell, tree_LOD0 for all of them with the 01, 02, and 03 suffix. So we just want to make sure that our new plain axes here is also added to that group. So we just add it to the tree group, and now all of these items here are all set up to the tree group. Now that we have our new empty set up to the tree group, we're going to come down here to Custom Properties. We're going to click Add and Edit. We will change the property name to FBX_type. And for property value, we're going to put LOD Group. So that's capital L and capital G. Set OK. And now we can do everything just like we did before for exporting the groups. So we could simply select any one of the objects that's in the group tree, and it would say tree group selected up here in Capsule, in groups, and making sure we also have export list groups here. We also have to make sure that we set our object origin, so we can just click out of that, making sure that we click the eyedropper, we click it, and location we talked about already setting up, UE4 standard, making sure you're either edge or face, and then we can just click enable export and our tree will pop up here and click export. And we didn't see any errors here, so we know it did fine. We could open up Unreal Engine 4 and go to import, click on our tree, and we want to make sure we have import mesh LODs selected, okay? And we shouldn't need to click auto generate collision because in this scenario we also have collision for our model. So we just say import all, and we see our tree come in, and if we open it up, if we scroll out, we can see that we have LODs automatically. And we can also see if we turn on collision and go to simple collision, we also have our custom collision boxes. So we could do this literally with hundreds of objects in a scene using Capsule and that small bit of code that we adjusted in the import-export functionality of Blender. And now we have a highly increased workflow for working in Blender for Unreal Engine 4 game development. If you appreciate the content, you can help support this channel on patreon.com/toxicitygamedev. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, there's a lot to come. Peace.